Now, it's been reported today that boys as young as three or four, are being urged to wear a skirt at a primary school in Edinburgh in order to promote equality. An email apparently sent to parents of pupils at Castleview Primary said the school could provide skirts to any boy who didn't have one. The initiative apparently seeks to mimic a campaign by a number of schools in Spain where students are encouraged to wear skirts as an act of solidarity, apparently with a boy who was expelled for doing that, for wearing one. It's not clear why the experiment's now being attempted in Scotland, however. Well, joining me, the former MSP and leader of Reform UK Scotland, that's Michelle Ballantyne. Michelle, thanks ever so much for joining us this evening on GB News. Appreciate your time. What do you make of this particular idea, and what do you expect parents to do about it?
Well, I think, first of all, you mentioned in your opening that it's hard to understand why Castleview School felt it necessary to even have the day. I can understand what happened in Spain, where a boy was actually expelled for wearing a skirt, and pupils came out in solidarity and saying, actually, you shouldn't be expelled from school for choosing to wear a specific item of clothing. So that made a deal of sense. But why an Edinburgh primary school would feel it appropriate, I think a lot of parents are a bit baffled because it feels tokenistic. You might argue it's a bit of fun. It's interesting. They're trying to say clothes are gender neutral. Well, I think most of us would say, yes, fine. We wear kilts in Scotland. We don't immediately see those as feminine or masculine as such, because you can wear them whether you're male or female. But this feels like, for a lot of parents, back to this idea that schools feel that they have to take moral stances, that they have to teach your children, even when they're very young, moral stances, and take away the parents' rights to decide on those processes and decide when it's appropriate to start educating your child around things like discrimination, around bullying, around things like transphobia and homophobia, and a lot of parents feel that schools are slightly getting their priorities wrong, that they should be focusing on education, which is about maths and English and languages and these kind of things, not receiving a letter home saying we want your boys and your girls to wear a skirt to school today. And if they're really concerned, then what does it matter? If they're genuinely saying clothes are gender neutral, then surely the school policy should be whatever you like. And if a boy comes in a skirt, no big deal. If a girl comes in a skirt, no big deal. Having a day actually feels like they're being, they're actually saying there's some sort of gender attachment to this. They're not actually saying we don't care what you wear on any given day. They're making a day of it, which seems illogical even in their arguments.
Look, Michelle, I don't know where Castleview Primary sits in the league tables, but we do know that over the last 10 years, according to the PISA league tables, which make international comparisons of academic achievement, when it comes, I think, particularly to the SNP might correct me if I get this wrong, but certainly in the sciences, Scotland has plummeted. A lot of schools yes. in Scotland have plummeted on sciences, I think in maths as well. And therefore yes. This will strike some people as a kind of displacement activity, really. And I would argue, I think, worse than that, because there's a danger you are sowing the seeds of discord gratuitously, that you're enforcing a needless choice on parents, and some will take a position that says, OK, it's a good idea, let's send little Johnny in tomorrow in a skirt, and others won't. And there may be, and maybe some people think it's good, that there will be, tensions on the school gates and heated conversations and all the rest of it. And some people might say that's good, debating an important topic. Actually, it just feels like there are bigger things to be talking about, bigger things to be doing.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. It feels like in a world which at the moment is very divisive, where they are dividing people between the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated, parents who think it's a good idea to have their children vaccinated, parents who think it's not a good idea to have their children vaccinated. This is just another nail in that divisive coffin. And I think children need to just get on and be children. They don't need to be thinking about these deep and complex problems. They need to be able to play and laugh. They need to be corrected if they bully somebody, but they do need to be focusing on the things that matter in school, which is around, as you say, the STEM subjects, getting their English right, and actually being able to move on in an effective way educationally. And it just feels now that there's more focus on these divisive topics. And, we know bullying is rife in schools. Whatever the government say, bullying is a real problem for a lot of children. And this just adds another thing to be bullied about. You turn up in a skirt, if you're the one they all bully, they're going to laugh at you or give you a hard time if you're the boy. You don't turn up in a skirt, they're going to accuse you of being transphobic. You can't win. And children don't need that added pressure, and parents certainly don't. And I just think, as a parent, I mean, I put 6 children through school, and you are constantly dealing with this tension between what the school thinks is right for your children, what you think is right for your children. And I just think these things are going further than a school really ought to be going.
Michelle, as well as bringing up those kids, you've been active in Scottish politics for a while. If somebody had said to me before I knew where this school was, where in the UK this was happening, I would have laid a modest bet on it being somewhere in the Central Belt. Why is it that under the SNP it would appear, when it comes to woke politics, parts of Scotland have gone doolally?
The SNP, particularly under the Scottish Government, there seems to have been a drive to sort of make Scotland different, to somehow say that, you know, we're different, we're special, we're going to have particularly feminist equality. And that's driven a lot by the First Minister's own position, you know, and how she sees the world. And then she's brought in a lot of people around her that share that position. But it's also, I think, a real problem in politics where parental views are often trodden over. So as parents now, we're increasingly being told by the state how to bring up our children and, you know, how we should discipline them, the morals they should be taught. And Scotland seems to be going further and further down that line. And I think it is very, very problematic and very worrying, because it's not stopping the things that really matter, like bullying. You know, that's just as bad, and if in some cases worse now. But actually what they need to be addressing is the standard of education. Children have missed over a year of schooling in many cases, and that's going to have a massive effect on children's futures. And, you know, what we ought to be hearing now is a real push on how we bring up those educational standards, how we make up for the lost time that we've had as a result of COVID. Instead, we've got a country that is all about sound bites, is all about virtuous signalling, and it's all about creating division so that they can say, we're different to the rest of the UK, so let's just, you know, go our own way. But it's actually doing an inordinate amount of damage, and a lot of children who are going to come out, I think, very confused around what their role is in life, where they sit, what they think about things, and they're going to be scared of having an opinion because they've been told what to think, rather than being able to actually stand up for what they believe in and actually say what they think about things.
Michelle Ballantyne, appreciate your time tonight. Really interesting. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Thanks a lot. Subject of our poll tonight, this one. Let's just flash it up for you, tell you how many people have voted. It's usually a decent measure of public interest in this. If it's above 10,000 in the space for now, you know, it's exercising you a little bit, and we're getting there, heading towards that. An Edinburgh primary school wants boys to wear a skirt for a day to promote equality. Do you think this will be effective? Overwhelmingly, you think not. Andrew Doyle, host of Free Speech Nation, is alongside me. We'll do this in a slightly different way, if that's all right, Andrew.
Okay.
We'll start with the last question to Michelle Ballantyne first, because I thought her answer is quite interesting. We talked about this a lot, about what's going on in Scotland, woke culture. You know, there's a democratic switch there that allows people, if they don't like it, ultimately to take their vengeance at the ballot box. She says it's because it's part of the process of differentiation. They want to, the SNP want to show we're just not England.
I mean, that could be it. That's an interesting theory, that they want to sort of show, well, I suppose it's pushing for independence, isn't it, and saying that we are distinct.
By annoying a very large part of the electorate.
I mean, it sounds weird, doesn't it? I'm not so sure about this. I think it's very interesting what Michelle Ballantyne was saying about the idea that they sort of want to be in loco parentis. They want to sort of intervene to extreme extents. And we've been there before, haven't we, with the named person scheme? Do you remember
Which was nuts, this idea that
it
doesn't matter what kind of kid you are, you're not troubled, you're from a very happy family, but you will get a state-appointed guardian. I think they ditched the idea eventually.
I think it got ditched on their behalf by the court, actually. I mean, it didn't go through, thank goodness, because but it does point to a certain mentality within the SNP, a very paternalistic mentality, reality, and they have all sorts of nanny state-ish policies. But I'm not sure that people can take their revenge at the ballot box. I mean, it is a one-party state, effectively. Who are they going to vote for? The Tories
hang
and
on a
Labour.
minute. You're here as a free speech spokesman, not as a political correspondent.
No, fine,
but a cephologist.
I'm sorry, but I'm just saying, it does feel like the SNP has more leverage than most parties because they know they're not going to lose at the election. There isn't the competition. So, and maybe when you have a one-party state, effectively like that, you can get away with more of this stuff. But yeah, it is baffling because a lot of people are supporting the party, even though, in spite of these crazy policies, which a lot of people just don't support.
Let me just take up the SNP's part in a very limited way here. I mean, I've no idea whether what's going on at Castleview Primary School in Edinburgh has got anything to do with the SNP. Almost certainly not. I mean, we're just setting it in that broader context. On this point, about a day, if anybody's just turning on, what are we talking about? We're talking about a school in Edinburgh where on a day, the boys will be invited to wear skirts to promote equality because this has been happening in Spain.
Yes. Yeah, but it's incoherent. I mean, you've just shown the poll, which is saying, 97% of viewers are saying this won't promote equality. Well, quite. How will this promote equality? Has this really been thought through? Has anyone made a statement to explain how this could possibly promote equality? My suspicion is, and of course I absolutely don't know what's going on here, my suspicion here is it is one of these kind of activist teachers, one of these members of staff who's got on board with this gender ideology and wants to promote it in a ham-fisted way because actually it isn't even coherent even in its own logic. It doesn't quite make sense, really. I mean, a lot of schools now are moving towards gender-neutral uniforms. You've got, I mean, over 40 secondary schools in the UK have moved to gender-neutral uniforms. The idea of that, I mean, I don't really care, if people want to dress however they want to dress, that's fine. Although the motivation behind that move has been a little weird. It's been that it's based on the premise that trans pupils or pupils who identify as the other sex will feel uncomfortable if other people are wearing uniforms that are connected to their sex. And that's a very patronising view of trans people at all, and it's actually not experientially true. So the thinking on these things is always a little bit muddied, and that, I think, is what's happened here. I wonder what will happen with boys coming in skirts. How do you go from that to this is going to help equality? I honestly can't see the connection.
I don't know, and I just think it gratuitously sows seeds of discord that need not happen. And I mean, if it was down to me, I certainly wouldn't be sending my lad in a skirt. But then, maybe if you said to me, I really want to wear a skirt because all my pals are, then maybe I'd think again. But, insofar as I'm expected to offer a view as a parent, and I still believe that parents do actually get ultimately the final say on how it goes, particularly with younger children, then I'll just shake my head and say, off you go, lad, in your shorts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's nothing biological about a male or female that makes them prefer a skirt to a pair of trousers. So I understand in that respect maybe they're trying to break down those preconceptions. But does anyone really think that's the case anyway? I'm not so sure. I think this is more connected to this mania around gender at the moment and this complete sort of inability to think through what gender actually is and what gender is, of course, things like that. Boys in blue, girls in pink. That stuff is socially constructed. We can all see that. Gender is... Well, what I was going to say is that gender is, which you might prefer, is that gender is actually a very complex blend of biological factors which are tied to behaviour and social factors and cultural factors which are to do more with tradition. And it's not just all one or all the other. It's actually actually more complicated.
I hate it when I make that noise, and you got me making that noise.
Actually, that's my goal. I like to make you make that noise.
But I was simply going to say that actually, in the laboratory which is the Brazier family home, five girls, one boy, I observe that setting aside the pink and blue thing, the late mother was, if nothing else, a staunch feminist, and they were given every opportunity to play, bash things with a big hammer, or play in the doll's house, and the division was ineluctable. I mean, they just gravitated to certain things, and I know there'll be people saying, it was all, you didn't even realise you were doing it. It was unconscious bias. I really don't think it was.
No, I mean, well, those things, what you're describing there is behavioural traits that are linked to many...
Biology. Half a billion years of evolution.
Evolution, exactly. So there is that.